Hey everyone, welcome back to the Collector's Compass, the official podcast of Collectors MD, where we explore the intersection of collecting, mental wellness, and responsible engagement across all corners of various hobbies. I'm your host, Alyx founder of Collectors MD, and today's episode is a special one, not just because of the topic, but because of the guest. If you've ever been around the sneaker or streetwear world over the past decade plus, there's a good chance you've come across the name Mikey Dabb, better known as the Campout. Mikey's been deeply rooted in sneaker culture for years, lining up outside shops like KITH, Concepts, Extra Butter, Supreme, and more, back when camping out was a defining part of sneaker and streetwear culture. Over time, that turned into content, collabs, and a brand that's built on something we talk about a lot here: authenticity, intention, and community. On a personal note, Mikey and I go back more than 10 years. There was a stretch in my 20s where I actually had over 500 pairs of sneakers. And even then, I don't think I was touching his numbers. We chopped it up together on shows like From the Ground Up by Heist and Embodies. We talked about culture, storytelling, and why we fall in love with stuff in the first place. Today, I want to take a step back and zoom out a little bit, because Collectors MD isn't just about sports cards. It's about anyone who collects, whether it be sneakers, streetwear, cards, comics, memorabilia, art, you name it, and helping people move from impulsive chasing to intentional collecting with clarity and accountability. So we're going to look at collecting through the lens of a sneakerhead, how campouts turned into apps, how culture turned into commodity, and how we can still choose to collect on our own terms. Mikey, welcome to the Collector's Compass. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me first and foremost. It was a very pleasant entry. I like that. It was nice.
I appreciate that. I get that from time to time. Awesome, man. Well, we'll dive right in because there's a lot that I want to cover tonight.
Please.
And we're going to start with our first segment where we're going to cover community, culture, and the joy of the lineup, the camp out, if you will. So let's start at the beginning, man. Before the apps, right? Before technology allowed us to do a lot of the things that we were doing in person, before the insane resale market, back when, your name literally came from the activity of camping out, right? So for people who only know sneakers from, like the sneakers app and StockX or Supreme, I mean, everything is just like online now, right? Bots, exactly. And we've entered a completely different era across all of these different verticals, especially within the sneaker space. So I want to know from your perspective, what did those New York City campouts look and feel like for you?
I mean, essentially the idea, like you kind of mentioned, derived from camping out is the camp out. And I think I started doing releases only because I enjoy the camaraderie of people who were actually collecting, right? The only way to obtain a shoe was to, one, know about where it was releasing, but then two, being able to actually touch that item by camping out. Obviously, we've always had that issue of resell, right? That was the biggest issue when you were camping out. They would just take over the line and scare people into getting out of their wear early morning, and that's really where the camp out kind of shined. That's the whole idea, was to make sure people felt safe and secure in their position in line without feeling threatened, and being able to grab a shoe. And then along the way, we just created all these amazing relationships like ours.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's community. You touched on something that I think affects a variety of different hobbies, not just sneakers, not just sports cards. It's really this like resale economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a shared sort of deep structural and a lot of psychological synergies that come with that. And they've evolved like almost identically, right? Everything's driven by scarcity, hype, and the illusion of like smart investing, right? A lot of people justify purchases by saying, oh, well, I'm just, buying something that's going to appreciate in value over time. And, both of these lanes, both sneakers and TCG, sports cards, etc., have turned once passionate hobbies into speculative marketplaces, right? And they intersect in a number of ways. Again, you have the manufactured scarcity and the hype circles. Both industries create this sort of artificial hype and drive demand, right? With the sneakers, you have the limited edition drops, you have the exclusives, you have the region locked releases. With cards, you have the low number parallels, the short prints, the one-of-one chases, and each cycle keeps collectors hooked on the next hit or the next release. And it very much rewards speed and access instead of like true appreciation or knowledge, right? And then like you also have the platforms that are turning the collecting into like a form of day trading, right? You have StockX, GOAT, eBay,
Well,
whatnot
yeah.
is even become like extremely popular amongst sneakerheads and sneaker culture. Obviously, sports cards is kind of its bread and butter, but it's become like more or less like a Robin Hood for material items. And
Mhm.
it makes the process of flipping an item kind of frictionless in a lot of ways. You have the prices that are updating on a live basis. You have a dashboard that tracks every sale. You have collectors, again, who are now becoming self-proclaimed investors by default. And the result here is a culture of constant refresh, where items are just no longer stories; they're assets, right? And
It's just
then
keep them.
there are a few other things. You have the illusion of control, like where markets convince participants that they can beat the system. And like sneakerheads believe they can outsmart bots or time drops. And card collectors believe they can hit with, just by picking the right box or investing in the right player. But both behaviors feed into the same dopamine driven reward loop. It's not logic, it's just luck disguised as strategy, right? Then there's the validating through value, the burnout cycle, the path forward, like everything I just mentioned. We'll get into in a little bit, but again, there's so many synergies between these different hobbies and ways to appreciate material items that are good in a lot of ways, but also carry a lot of negativity. And what Collectors MD is doing is trying to sort of push away the noise and focus on what you're passionate about, what you enjoy. And so when you talk about it, it doesn't sound like, just getting a pair of shoes that you're, going to throw on your feet and, walk around the city. And
Yeah.
it's more than that. It's memories, it's relationships. So was there a specific release or moment from, that earlier era, let's call it like 2012 to 2020, that really kind of defined what sneaker culture meant to you?
It's a long progressive story from KITH and whatnot, but I'll just say the idea of reconnecting with the owner director of KITH at like a sneaker show prior to like KITH kind of exploding. We went to high school together. I was like, "Oh, what are you up to these days?" I had no idea like KITH was like a thing. It was like a small little hole in the wall, and I think they had just dropped it was a GT2, and I went to go check the store out. I was like, oh, a little bit of hype. Let me go see what's going on here. And then there was like a whole bunch of people camped out, and flamingos were dropping, as a matter of fact. And I was like, oh, those are fire. I'm going to see if I can grab them. And realizing that like there's like a whole community of people who already know about said product and like want it, and then seeing the front of the line be what it was, and people go, oh, if you want it, I got you for 100 over box. And that
Right.
immediately turned me off to the situation, but also made me think there's space to kind of install myself and not only get the thing I want, but also kind of usher out this temperament or attitude that like you have to be afraid of a release or
Right.
afraid of a camp out to obtain something you want because of the money making aspect.
Right. Yeah, this is a quick look at the Ronnie Feig Gelite 3 flamingos that Mikey is referencing here. And for a long time, like the A6 Gelite 3 specifically, you mentioned the GT2, but it was really the Gelite 3 that became the iconic silhouette that true collectors and enthusiasts were after. And Kith and Ronnie really brought that model, that silhouette to the forefront during that era and just made it iconic and very, very popular in a lot of ways. So yeah, the flamingos are a classic. I had them at one point, paid resale for them, admittedly, well at years after they actually came out.
I got them sitting right over there to my left.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Awesome, man. Well, you said something that I think really hits home for me, and this is something that came up when we featured you in the collector spotlight last month. And you talk about how there's like the effort tied to the shoe, right? In the card world, we talk about that too. Things like driving to a card show or trading in person or building relationships. And then, the internet comes along and now everything is sort of from the couch or from the office. And like with that, do you feel like something important got lost when the line sort of experience, the campouts, turned into just like refreshing a website or an app?
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example, right? And yes, the short answer is yes. Everything changed when you took away that personal element in between people who were either trying to camp out for sure or even selling said item. When you know the people that you're selling to, all of a sudden that resale that went from 100 might have dropped to 75 because
Right.
you met it or you had an interaction with the person. Like once everything turned to digital after 20, say like 18, 19 is when I really felt like it started just transitioning super fast. And then COVID, obviously, you were able to kind of have camaraderie, which I think is completely gone. I think the fact that you can hide behind a keyboard, hide behind an alias, hide behind no pictures on your profile, and just say, this is what I want, kind of takes everything away from the collecting aspect and the passion aspect.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's 100% true. There were some things that I think came with the activity of camping out that maybe was a little bit dangerous and
A little bit.
not so positive in a lot of ways. But to your point, there was community, there was camaraderie, there was an experience, and like sort of the build up, right, of a release. And when you finally got your hands on that, pair of sneakers that came out, it was just like a much different feeling than it is now when you're just, again, sitting behind your phone, placing an order, checking out, and then waiting a week or so for it to arrive in the mail. It's not the same.
Hmm.
And so, what you're describing is, also again, something we see with the cards and the hobby all the time. Like when there's no memory attached, it's easier to just flip or sell, dump, or like just chase the next thing. And back then, like, did you have any sense that this was building into something sort of bigger for you, like a platform, a brand, or were you just like a dude who loved shoes and loved being there?
I think the again short answer is no. I didn't see it building. I just saw space, and I have a tendency to do things that I like to do in all facets of my life. But I really enjoyed getting to kind of service the community in a way that helped people get what they wanted while also feeling safe, which is why I'm not talking about Jordan and 34th Street. We're specifically talking about the Soho and LES areas where like it
Right.
was a smaller knit community where people are actually closer. I didn't see podcasts. I didn't see Hypebeast podcasts. I didn't see any of that. I just saw like something I really enjoyed. And whatever happened after that, it's authentic.
Yeah, yeah, well said. We'll transition over to the next segment, which is sort of the rise of hype, and how everything has gone from culture to commodity. And so you fast forward a bit, sneaker culture starts to blow up, right? It becomes mainstream. Everybody's talking about it. You have celebrities doing the sneaker shopping with Joe LaPuma and Complex. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And these resale platforms are popping up. The StockX's, the Goats, the eBays, everything is just becoming online. Content is exploding and collaborations. I mean, forget about it with the collabs. They've become like currency, right? So, from your vantage point, right, because you were right there in it, when did you start to feel that shift from culture to commodity?
Complex Con number one and StockX Day number two, which were both, I think, like 2 years apart. StockX Day number two, I think I want to say it was like 2017 or so, somewhere in
I
there.
remember
I,
StockX Day. I
Stock,
actually totally forgot about that. I forgot it existed. This was back when Josh Luber was still running the show.
yes, sir. And like hearing about it and seeing that like a resale platform, which I was always suspicious about from like earlier podcasts, I'd always be like, there's no way for them to confirm these shoes. But like seeing that like a resale site was so prominent in a way that like people were just going there to check prices to find out if something was hype or not. And everyone asking what's the StockX price, just seeing that in like a first come, first serve basis when people were camped out at lines, I was like, this is not going to be good. And like seeing it be such a larger thing and then Complex Con, the first one that I went to, seeing how much people didn't really care about all of the activations and time that went into the event, and more so how much they can make from the products. Like we're used to it, right? We were always seeing it, but like at this level from so many different places was a little unsettling, truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how there again so many synergies with like major players, right? You have like the complexes, you have StockX, you have the high snobieties and the hype beasts, and a lot of publishers, and then of course on the manufacturer side, um, a lot of it is controlled by Nike. I mean, they've become a conglomerate in a lot of ways, very similar to how Fanatics is in the hobby. But it's the same thing with these apps and these publishers, which are basically like influencers in the hobby that are very much controlling the narrative and controlling the direction of or the trajectory of the hobby. So I've always found that to be very interesting. How there's just so much overlap and similarities between the two hobbies, and they're alike in a lot of ways as it pertains to like modern culture. There's a lot of like again overlap in terms of collectors that like sneakers and also like cards. But if you really get granular and break down each product we're talking about, they are completely different, right? We're talking about a pair of sneakers that you are made to wear. They're meant to walk around in versus like like a piece of cardboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's wild because if you strip out the product completely and just describe the behavior, it sounds exactly like what we're seeing across these different verticals, again, like within sports cards. And so you've got the hype cycles, you've got the manufactured scarcity, the must-have drops, people buying more for resale value than actual personal connection. And so what similarities do you see between where sneakers ended up and where, and I know you don't, have a full understanding or context of like the current status or nature of the sports card hobby, but based on what you do know, where do you see again those similarities between where sneakers ended up and where cards are right now?
I think I think one, cards are built more for this direction than sneakers were ever built because, like you said, it's something you wear as opposed to something that you're automatically collecting. Like the one idea for trading cards or cards is to collect said item, right?
Right.
There's no, you can't wear it. You can't, there's nothing else you can do with it. So,
Well, you actually can wear it. A lot of the collectors are
the
like
chain,
the Logan Pauls wear the chain.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
like
no, but
the transition's almost identical if I'm seeing it from my perspective. And don't get me
right,
wrong, I collected Marvel cards when I was a kid. Like I have books of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider, Marvel, the whole nine. And like I was crazy as a kid. I can only imagine if I continued that hobby as an adult where I'd be now. But the similarities are like you said, identical.
yeah,
And again, I run a store. My staff does Pokemon trading cards in the store. I let him set up in the store, and the people that come in that collect cards, though very extremely nice, are very driven and focused on what particular pack it is, and they have a good relationship with my staff, and they're very friendly. But also, there's an online element too, and I can already see it's the same exact trajectory where like you
right,
disassociate from who you're talking to, and it becomes a transaction over something you actually like, and it's also extremely fast paced.
right. Yeah, it's extremely fast paced. There are parallels with the hype and the FOMO and just people chasing status or validation, not just the actual item. And, it's unfortunate because if you date back to before a lot of these manufactured systems that sort of engineer a lot of this hype that we're talking about, it like collecting was a beautiful thing. It was something that was rooted in belonging and emotions, nostalgia, family, friends, like you do it in community. And now it's just like all about the flip and all about like chasing the next new product so that you can, you know, come up a few bucks. And, we'll get into this in a bit, but like the resellers kind of ruined it in a lot of ways where you had these individuals who would just, again, use bots to obtain dozens or hundreds or sometimes thousands of pairs of one release, and they would control the market. They would be able to dictate what the prices would be on the aftermarket,
Mm-hmm.
and they made it virtually impossible for the regular average collector who just wanted the shoe to wear or to have in their collection be able to access or collect. So yeah, I think there's also that like emotional hangover where, people kind of wake up and they're like, why did I just buy this? I don't even like it that much. Right. And you've personally always struck me as someone who's not afraid to call that out, right? Well, first thing, or actually the only thing you really asked me before we came out to the show was, can I be a little polarizing? Can I talk some shit? And like, absolutely. Like, I love when people tell it how it is, right? And so at what point did you start consciously pulling back from the hype and saying like, I'm going to just do this on my own terms. I'm going to follow my own path and do it my way, not sort of everybody else's way.
I think I kind of got fed up with missing out on certain releases based on brands like Nike. Sneakers started becoming prevalent, and once you took away that relationship with the store and their consumers, and just made it like, hey, you have to be a location, and Nike can figure it out. But like resellers began taking the upper hand and botting the system, or surprisingly, there was only 100,000 pairs and only 6 people won. Like that type of stuff really dampens a mood if you're an actual fan of product, storylines, and releases. Like I just didn't feel as though I was being treated like a consumer anymore. I felt as though it was just like, all right, well, the money's there and we'll be able to take it no matter how we do it. So, and I can't follow a trend like that. It's a moral compass thing for me, and that was it.
Yeah, man, I love that, because what we talk about a lot at Collectors MD is that shift from, the external metrics, the resale value, the clout, the hype, right, to the internal ones, the connection, the story, the meaning, the things that actually matter. And so was there a specific pair or a moment where you realized, if I just keep chasing what everyone else wants, I'm going to lose like what I actually love about this entire community and this entire hobby?
I can draw it down to like a Supreme release when they transitioned from, you remember when they transitioned from like the in-store lineup, the outside lineup, and then they had that security team come in and start doing like the online sign up, and you had to get there. And
Right.
we're botting the sign up, and it was just hundreds of people just showing up with random names to the front. I'm like, dude, what is going that from a skate shop, which was really rooted in community, taking that avenue and just going, okay, this product's going to sell regardless, and the best way for us to get it out the door, really made me rethink going outside and waiting for a product because I genuinely cared about it over this company that was street based. Going, we're going to make money anyway. So,
yeah.
And we'll say the foam posits that shut down where they just didn't give a they didn't really care too much about whatever transpired in the street, knowing what it would be, and then just letting stuff go. That and 21 Mercer were like the two locations that I felt like could have done a way better job connecting with their community who was always there, as opposed to just taking the easy way out, so to speak.
Right. And the foam posits you're referencing are the Supreme. Yeah, I'll show them real quick for those that are watching on YouTube, and for those that are going to be listening to this after the fact, I guess tomorrow, once we get this live on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc., I am just pulling up here what those foam posits looked like. And I think this is actually a perfect example of a shoe that is, right? I mean, look, a lot of those are the what are those called again on the top left?
Those are the Chinese New Year, if I'm not mistaken.
The Chinese New Year. Yeah, I think this shoe in particular is a perfect example of an item, of a pair of sneakers that were completely driven by hype. You look at this shoe, right? No one in their right mind is looking at this shoe in the black or red colorway and saying, wow, like those are awesome. Like those would go really well with, this outfit I have, or like they'd be the perfect pair of sneakers to wear to this special occasion. I mean, they're like outrageous looking shoes. They're so gaudy. They have this, I don't even know what kind of design that is. It's kind of like a fleur-de-lis. I don't even know what to call it.
It's very luxurious.
Luxurious. It's just a ridiculous shoe. And, you could tell they were trying to create a release, or, a collab that exactly. It was a statement piece. They wanted it to look like a luxury item, or a Louis Vuitton, or Gucci or Prada, or any other luxury brands that would.
I'm trying to think. Like, I'm just thinking like woodwork and design is like what I forget what the name of the shoe was. Like, it was so long ago, but like it was just cool. Fire, Supreme dropping a dope foam posit, colorway you haven't seen before. Go out there and get it. Perfect.
Yeah, and then another thing that's interesting is like the foam posit silhouette in particular is also just an outrageous looking shoe. It was designed specifically for Penny Hardaway, and you could see his 1 cent logo on the back. And he wore it as like a player edition of PE, and then it just caught on in like, you know, streetwear culture and became this iconic shoe that they've had a lot of different types of releases. As far as like hype is concerned, I feel like the Galaxies were at the top of the list. Not anymore, because they brought it back, they retroed it, and as they say, no pair is safe. They can always take a PE or a limited edition shoe like the Undefeated Fours and redo them and then release them to the masses. And it's like, okay, that's that. You know, if you're an owner of one of those originals, then it actually, it's funny because they do the same thing with cards, right? Like you have the 86 Fleer Jordan, or like the iconic Honus Wagner. I don't know if you're familiar with like the little mini card that used to come in cigarette boxes. This one card in particular, Honus Wagner. Honus Wagner, the baseball player, was not a fan of cigarettes, and so he said, you know, I don't want my card in cigarette boxes or cartons, and they stopped releasing them. And so that was a card that ended up becoming scarce because of a moment, right? Yeah. As opposed to like the manufacturer or like the company deciding like, we're just going to come out with like a limited run and it's going to be hot commodity. And so that's one of the reasons why people chase after that card. Anyway, that card's been reprinted and repurposed a million times over, and it doesn't hold the same weight or carry the same value, obviously, as the original. But with sneakers, it's different because the original, like for instance, a pair of 85 Chicago Jordan 1s, they fall apart. Like in order like to find a pair of sneakers that from like the 80s that are in good condition, that aren't crumbling and are wearable, is virtually impossible, because sneakers are made to wear. They're made to fall apart over time, right? Whereas like with cards, they can, if you protect them correctly, I mean, same thing applies with sneakers, I guess, to an extent, but if you put a card in a case, or it's like graded, it's slabbed, it can, you know, theoretically last forever. And so I think that's like one difference that card collectors appreciate, is the fact that once you own a card, it could become like an heirloom. You could pass it down from generation to generation. Whereas with sneakers, it's like you have a beautiful pair or collection of sneakers, they are eventually going to deteriorate or grow mold, or if they're not being stored correctly. And so that was something for me that, like, you know, again, sitting on 500 pairs of sneakers, I was like, 20, 30 years, like, what am I going to do with all this? You know, it's going to be,
I had the same epiphany. Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm sure you have. And as those of you watching on YouTube, you can see Mike's beautiful collection behind him.
This is all wearable.
Those are just the pairs he wears. He's got everything else either in storage or drop from containers. I'm sure I was the same way.
We'll get to that, won't we?
Yeah, we will. So with that, it's a good segue to our next segment, which is intentional collecting and building on your own terms, which is something we just touched on briefly, but I want to unpack it a little bit more. So on our collectors spotlight, which we featured Mikey in last month, we talked about how you don't chase what's trending on StockX or whatever's pumping this week. You collect silhouettes, colorways, and again, storytelling that feels true to you. So how would you describe your philosophy around intentional collecting now?
Well, I mean, I feel like my collecting was always based around what I want to wear. As an adult, you know, your style changes, therefore what you wear should change. In regards to what's behind me, I had a very similar epiphany to you with as many pairs as I had, almost like 800 pairs of shoes sitting around my house. A lot were worth a lot of money. And then where I am now is more about functionality and being able to move and feel comfortable all day, over the idea of I need that because it's coming out. One,
right,
can I wear it? Two, is it comfortable? Three, does it make sense as a purchase? It's high move.
I really, really like that. And I think it's so important, right? Because a lot of people have felt that tension where, like, do I buy what I like or what the internet says is hot? And if someone's stuck in that loop, they're constantly chasing like whatever is popular, whatever is trending. From your perspective, how do they start moving towards making mindful purchases of what they actually love?
I mean, I think you really have to think about why you're making the purchase in the first place. That's where you start, right?
Hmm.
The idea where I had to slow down was like I was at releases every weekend, so I was like, I'm here. I might as well grab the shoe. If I wear it,
Yeah.
I wear it. If I don't, there'll be somebody who'll buy it, or I'll give it to somebody who's looking for it. And always at retail, never like make money, but like I just was buying to absorb what was happening because I was there. And then
Hmm.
slowly I transitioned away from that because I'm like, I don't need it. I don't. It's taking up space in my house. It's clutter. It's stressing me out. And I think at some point you have to weigh out what the pros and cons are with everything, right?
Right.
Like if it's too many shoes and you can't buy lunch, you can't afford your rent, you can't pay your phone bill, and you're buying another pair of shoes, you got to reevaluate the situation. If you're
Yeah.
in your house and you can't get to something because there's so many shoes that you're not even wearing, you got to reevaluate the situation.
Right.
If you go to get dressed and you leave your house and you're going through 90 pairs of shoes to figure out what's going to be the best, you might want to rethink it. Like
Right. Right. Yeah. People just end up getting caught up in the hype, and they feel this undying, relentless need to be a part of a drop or release. And if they're not a part of it, like, that'll be the end of their journey, or their, I mean, people just like drive themselves crazy with this sort of mindset. And very similar to the sneaker world, where there are releases, multiple releases almost every day at this point, but realistically every week there's a hyped release, right? Same thing with the sports cards. The only difference is, well, there are a lot of differences, but the main difference is that a pair of sneakers at retail costs anywhere from like $150 to, sometimes more depending on the shoe, 200, 250, 300. But like the hobby boxes, one, they start at a couple $100 and they go north of, you know, 2 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand, depending on the product. And two, most collectors aren't just buying one box and calling it quits. They're buying a box, they the contents of what's inside. And if they don't get anything they like or of note or value, they go and chase another box. And quite often we see people just ripping entire cases. And these cases can have anywhere from 6 to 8 to 12 to 16 to 20 boxes within it, depending on the format. And next thing you know, you're quite literally spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on just one release, right? And it's not like, you buy 50 pairs of Supreme foam posits and your plan is to keep one and sell the rest and, make a ton of money. And there's a fixed aftermarket value, right? Even if it's below retail, you still know you're getting back, like, let's call it 80 or 90% of what you paid.
yeah,
Whereas with cards, it's completely volatile, and you have no idea what you're getting. So you can literally rip a $500 box of Prism basketball and get back $10 worth of cards. It's literally gambling, and so that is one distinct difference with other types of collecting, like sneakers, like memorabilia, art, comic books, things of that nature, or even luxury items, watches, handbags, that you know what you're getting. When you go to purchase an item, you know that you're getting that item. When
can
you
I
go to
ask a question?
purchase, yeah, of course. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for you. So, like, when you talk about these prices of trading cards, right? Who's
Right.
dictating the prices of a box? Is it coming directly from the manufacturer at like $6,000, or is it coming from someone who's already purchased it from the manufacturer who's reselling it for $6,000?
That is a fantastic question and something that comes up all the time. Um, there's sort of a combination of things, right? You have the what we call like market makers. So that's the breakers. Are you familiar with what a breaker is?
One who on like a stream like this would just break open boxes and then
Exactly.
sell them to people as they're opening, like video
Yeah,
art.
that's one format,
Yeah.
but generally you'll be assigned a team or a player or a parallel within a box of cards. And if or when that card comes out of the box, you receive that card. So it's like a shared experience with other participants who are buying into the same box, so that you're basically buying a piece of the pie and you don't have to pay the entire price for a $500
Wow.
box Prism. And
Yeah,
it's gotten out of control. I mean,
I'm
they do
sure.
breaks by the case now or by the pallet, and so just to get into a break is hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars for one team. But anyway, the market makers, the breakers, the platforms. So like Fanatics Live and whatnot, and eBay Live. There are other ones like Loop. People are breaking on YouTube and Facebook. And then you have the distributors. So those are the basically middlemen, if you will, who are getting the product directly from the manufacturer, whether it be Topps or Panini. Topps is now owned by Fanatics. And then they're distributing it to their clientele. And usually that clientele includes breakers and card shops. And so they very much manipulate or are like the biggest price setters, right? They dictate the immediate market sentiment through pricing, auctions, comps. And when breakers set high spot prices, for instance, like that's artificially inflated. And there's a sort of perceived value with things like sealed wax and singles, right? And so the speed and the scale of like live selling has turned short-term hype into kind of like a long-term value. So essentially these platforms manufacture volatility, and volatility is what keeps people spending, right? You could break it down by the manufacturers, again, Fanatics, Topps, Panini, and then there's the whole thing with the algorithm, the marketplaces, the price aggregators. There's the speculators, people who are actually flipping the cards, the influencers who are posting, their live rips on YouTube and social media. And then you have like the true collectors, right? The quiet minority, if you will. And at the bottom of the pyramid are these collectors, the ones who actually care about the cards, not the comps or the resale prices. And they're not dictating the prices at all. They're just reacting to them. And so when they buy, it's about meaning and nostalgia and connection, not just like the resale projections. They're what we like to say are the soul of the hobby, but not the engine driving it. So bottom line is like the card market isn't being priced by collectors anymore. It's being priced by systems of speculation. So the platforms create the volatility, the manufacturers create the scarcity, the algorithms create this sort of perceived value, and the influencers create the narrative.
Very similar.
And then, it's very similar. The collectors, they get left trying to sort of assign meaning to something that's designed to move and not matter, because it's just become this like ultra fast, high paced system that all these powers that be care about is revenue, right? So the collector just gets lost in the shuffle, and it's unfortunate, but that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but nonetheless one that I think is really important to touch on.
Before we cycle, you asked me a question: how do you start thinking about separating yourself from like that hype? And through all of the smoke of what was just spoke about, you had that guy that's at the bottom, that's in it for the purity of the love. Like you have to remember, like, where do you see cards if you're not on a platform like this? If you're not actually chasing at a show or somewhere, like, where do you see cards? Like, where do I see shoes in the street? Like, where's that for the card collecting community? Like, where is it that I can go to? So say I wanted to, and I don't want to follow a stream. I don't want to worry about hype. I want to walk into a store and I want to buy a deck of cards. Like, where's that in this community now?
Right. And I mean, it's all on social media, right? Yeah. Like, people vicariously live through other people's collecting journeys through social media, whether it be a video of them opening a box, or, an Instagram post of a big hit, or, a rainbow, which is like, a number of parallels of the same player, the same card from the same set. To your point, like, there's no way of showcasing your collection in a public way unless you're at a card show. Like, this actually is probably the best type of venue to do something like that. People have like these entire displays, they buy booths, people come and transact, they trade, they buy, they sell. It's actually a beautiful thing, but it's gotten to a point now where card shows, again, are just rooted in the resale, the flip, and it just becomes a transaction as opposed to like an opportunity to showcase something meaningful that you like genuinely care about and share that pride, that passion with other people, right? And then there are other events like Fanatics Fest and the National Sports Card Convention, which both have become synonymous with the hobby. They've become increasingly popular. But yeah, to your point, like people aren't walking around wearing like their cards as like jewelry unless you're
Yeah.
again like Logan Paul. um, but going back to sort of this idea of the mindful purchasing, the collecting with intention, you know, again, that applies across everything: the sneakers, cards, hats, like wherever. I know the hat community is huge right now, and that's actually one that we don't really even touch on, but we know there's a massive subculture there. But for you personally, what does it feel like when you make a purchase from intention as opposed to a purchase from impulse?
I think it takes it way back to the original reason I enjoyed sneakers to begin with. When I make it, well, I bought a pair of shoes. Now, granted, I work in sneakers. I do a lot of sales meetings, sellings, and whatnot. I get a lot of free stuff. I'm not going to say I don't.
Right,
I still buy shoes.
right,
I'll still go buy a shoe. One, because I'm showing support to my brand, but I'm also showing that like I want this enough to spend my money on it, and it feels good because I thought about it. I thought, oh, you know what? I bought those pants from Zara. Wasn't going to look good with that, and like all of a sudden, I start to feel like, oh, yeah, you know what? This is worth purchasing because I have a reason to wear it, and
right.
that makes me feel much better about something where 2016 and below, I would buy things and it would go directly in a box on a wall. Another quick point: when the community took a turn for the worse is when you can buy a shoe and on StockX and have them hold it for you instead of it coming to your house.
That's a
And when
great
it
point.
sells, they can ship it out for you. Like you're not even
Yeah,
getting a product anymore. You're just this invisible thing that has just a number sign attached to it until it has a number sign that you can obtain from it and goes right back out again. That I think that was the ultimate like slap in the face.
I love that you brought that up because that's exactly what we're seeing right now in the sports card hobby, where you can purchase a card from platforms like eBay, Arena Club. I think even Whatnot is offering it to some extent, but you can purchase a card or a box of cards and have them just hold it as like a, you know, a monetary asset. And if or when you're ready to flip it, they'll just take care of it for you. And there's this company called Quick Consign, which basically is a consignment shop that allows you to list your cards on, you know, they do it on your behalf. And a lot of these breakers are just straight up partnering with Quick Consign so that if you join a break, you hit a card that you want to sell, Quick Consign will just do it for you right then and there. So to your point, like you never actually receive the physical card, you never get to experience it, hold it in your hand, enjoy, you know, the essence of what collecting is, right? It just becomes a transaction. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, in my humble opinion, one of the biggest problems with modern day collecting, right? Everything is just transaction now. If you want to transact, if you want to just buy for the purpose of flipping or profiting, go invest in the stock market. If you're just in the sports card hobby or the sneaker hobby to make money and you're not there for like community, passion, integrity, like all these things we talk about, you might want to reevaluate why you're doing it in the first place. I'm not telling you what to do, or like I'm not judging people that do that, but you know, it's become problematic.
I am. I 1000%.
I,
It's
I
my biggest issue, right? And
yeah,
not in like a negative way. I just see it as both sides, right? People
right,
who are in it just to make that quick flip is because it's what they know, right? Something you should always get. If you're good at something, you should always get paid for it, right?
right,
That's how the saying goes. If you've been collecting, no matter what it is, for a very long amount of time, and you have the most knowledge of said product,
right,
inevitably you're going to become a person that can potentially use your powers for good or evil. I
right.
guess we could look at it as right. And
Yeah,
good, you can do something like run campouts and make sure people get things fairly, or the bad side, you can run campouts and take all the product for yourself, like we just saw with Starbucks. I don't know if you saw
right.
that post where all the employees bought out the newest cup. People watched it happen. Like it's good or bad. It's in every field. No matter what you look at, no
Right.
matter what you collect, no matter what you do, there are decisions that can be made.
So what? Starbucks cups are like limited now. People are
Ooh,
collecting them.
where have you been, my friend? Listen,
Not in the Starbucks game. That's
just with
crazy to hear.
literally everything you get. We had Aglet of Italy, which is a lace shop. They drop limited
Yeah,
edition.
I know them well. Yeah.
Starbucks, as they do their holiday cups, and they're just like design cups from. I know because Starbucks across the street from my store, but like
Right.
there's a thing that popped up on my feed, and every year they do a holiday cup or 2 or 3, and it's always like a rush to find things.
Right.
This year they did like a teddy bear, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm
And
pulling it up right now.
I'm assuming the teddy bear went. Yep, there it is. There's the guy. But like
Well,
one
that's actually
Starbucks,
kind of cool. I
it's
was
fire.
thinking like a cup, like an
No,
actual
no,
like
no. I mean, it's usually like a
cardboard cup.
like a weird design, but like this year they did the teddy bear, and
Yeah.
like one Starbucks like went viral because they let all their employees come in and purchase it before the store opened up, and people were
Right.
outside camped out waiting for it, and then they opened, there was no product left. Like, what do you think they were doing with it? You think they were going to drink out of those cups? No, they were selling them.
Right. And how much are these flipping for?
That I can't tell you because I could care less.
Yeah.
But like,
It's
obviously,
crazy.
they're
I mean,
for a certain amount of money.
yeah, man. What this shows is that again, like the impulsive purchasing decisions, the just buying for the profit or for the flip. This exists across any and all verticals. It's not just sneakers, cards, watches, handbags, hats, etc. It's like, I mean, this is happening across the board, and it's been happening for decades. I mean, we remember growing up in the 90s, we're close in age. Like, you remember Beanie Babies, like Pogs, and what else was there? I mean, you had did you ever collect? Oh, are you showing the value of these bears? Hold on, let me remove
305
this.
buy now on
Show that again.
StockX. 305 on StockX for that teddy bear.
Can you show your screen again?
It was on my phone. I was just kind of.
Yeah. Is there a last sale?
Yes.
I think there is.
I wish I knew how to work this thing.
No, it's right. It's right under the 305. It should say last sale.
Like, 305.
There you go. So what is that, a 10x? I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, I digress. Ultimately, I love I love that you're not saying never buy anything hyped. What you're saying is like, just know why you're buying it, right? And that's a big part of what we try to do with Collectors MD, is to help people pull apart. Is this about joy, or is this about anxiety? Is this about expression, or is this about just keeping up? And so, have you ever caught yourself mid chase and had to pull the plug? Like, yeah, I'm only doing this for the wrong reasons. I gotta pause here.
1,000%. I mean, luckily I caught myself, right?
Right.
Where and like, my girlfriend is also like a big collector, and
Right.
and like watching her sometimes interact with like footwear, I'm like, oh, shit, that's a little crazy,
Right?
Like, well, calm down, we'll figure it out, and like we'll get it. It's the size, it's the item itself, and like that interaction kind of like made me rethink how I chase as well, because we were like hand in hand. I'm like, I need an 11 and I need a 5, like on whatever comes out, and then you start to reassess just how crazy you're getting over certain things. Plus, like maturing, like, do you really want to spend all your money on things that you really can't take with you? I mean, cards are a little different. You can take with you, but at the end of the day, it's just an item.
Right. 100%. So we're going to unpack the parallels a little bit more here. I mean, I had more questions, but I'm going through them now, and I'm realizing we already touched on them. So I'm going to skip a few here.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. This is it's great. I mean, we're unpacking exactly what I wanted to talk about. So when we talk about something like the chase, right, and how it shows up slightly differently across all these verticals, but at the end of the day, it just feels the same. In sneakers, it's the shock drop or the raffle or the limited collab. In cards, it's the case hit, the short print, the one of one, the live breaks, etc. Why do you think that chase, just the chase in general, is so addictive regardless of the product? I mean, we're just talking about the Starbucks teddy bears.
I think that it's a two-parter that we're referencing, right? Social media has a large part to do with all chase, I think, at this point. Earlier on, I think the chase was about being in a specific community with footwear, is what I'll touch on. A lot of people were there because there was a community that they wanted to be a part of, and they might not have been a part of anything else. So for them, every week being out with people was important because it's all they had, right? Some people were there because they wanted to put food on the table and they needed to flip that item. Plus, it sounded good, right? Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I resell shoes, and the market was worth reselling. Like that was their mentality. Listen, I talk to resellers, I talk to collectors, I talk to a lot of people. So like you get a lot of different responses when you have these conversations, and we listen and we don't judge. That's not something I'm here to do. I'm not here to judge you or your lifestyle, but I do have to take the feedback. I understand where it's coming from, and that also helps me in my decision making, seeing all of these different reactions.
Right.
I just think that social media has a big part of why people chase now, and the financial aspect has a lot of reason too, right? It's a
Sure.
fixation on that next big money grab, right? It's like gambling. Is really what it comes down to.
100%. And that's what we talk about every single day at Collectors MD. I also think that it comes down to the fact that the chase gives us this illusion of progress, right? It feels active. It feels like we're doing something. And
Mm,
even when what we're chasing might not actually bring us any closer to like what we ultimately want.
yeah.
But whether it's sneakers, cards, or anything else, like that moment right before the drop, the rip, the reveal, it's just pure anticipation. Your brain releases this dopamine in expectation of the reward, not from actually getting the reward itself. So even if what's inside the box doesn't live up to the hype or doesn't resell the way you thought it would, your brain's already been fed, and that's where the loop or the cycle comes in, right? We tell ourselves next time it'll hit, or next release will be better, or it's the same, it's just the same mechanism that keeps gamblers, like you said, spinning the wheel, right? Or playing hand after hand, or
Mm-hmm.
betting on sports games, parlays, teasers, etc. Or collectors like refreshing eBay, or waiting for their favorite breaker to come onto Whatnot at 2 a.m. The
Yep.
product doesn't matter as much as the possibility, and that feeling, the mix of hope, luck, control. It's overwhelmingly powerful, and until you start to realize and recognize it for like what it really is, it just can be very easy to confuse that rush you get from joy. And so once you sort of teach your brain that it can experience that rush, that excitement, that dopamine, it just wants more and more and more. Like
I got
we understand, we know that like collecting or like compulsion or obsession or addiction, they're not things that are driven by like a chemical reaction, or like you're not ingesting something in your body that is causing you to feel this way. But as far as like the dopamine centers are concerned, there's absolutely something happening that is sort of changing the balance of how your brain is functioning, right?
mm-hmm. I got a fun one
So
for you.
yeah, go ahead.
If you, because like I mentioned, I talked to a lot of different people from different levels of the sneaker field, right? Talking to a reseller, they don't just resell footwear, they resell apparel, they resell a watch, they'll resell a car if they need to. Really, for them, their dopamine isn't coming from collecting that item, it's from selling that item.
Right.
And because of that, they'll sell anything. They're not emotionally attached to the thing that you are, which is another reason why I kind of want to back away from the footwear and that side also, because they don't necessarily care at all about what you're very interested in. And
Right.
again, that comes back to the initial part of camping out and being like there was a community there. The people who are selling you the thing in this community, and I'm not saying this for the card community, I know from my experience with people that I dealt with in this specific space, don't care about that product like you care about that product, which allows them to disassociate from that emotional feeling that you have. So
Yeah,
it's a way to hold you hostage, so to speak.
absolutely. That's such a great point. And again, we see this within the sports card hobby too. The sellers are ultimately chasing the exact same thing that the buyers are, which is that dopamine, and they get it from, you know, dictating or manipulating the whole experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it be going on a Whatnot stream and saying, "Oh, this card's worth $2,000," when in reality the last one did 300, and then Joe Schmo is paying upwards of 600 for it, and then they're like, "Oh my God, you got it for $1,400 off? That's insane!" And the biggest bait and switch is they do these sudden death auctions where you
Mm-hmm.
have 10 seconds to make an impulsive purchasing decision and bid. And so it's this dopamine cycle, it's this loop,
Yep.
and they're doing it with other products and items than just sneakers. But we've been saying for a long time now that the singles market on Whatnot is really like the cancer of all of these issues. Because again, like in a 10-second sudden death auction, a seller can manipulate a transaction however they want. You know, you don't have time to go do your research and go look up comps on eBay or Card Ladder or 130 Point, which are the tools and resources we use to actually look at comps. They're just listening to what the breaker says and what the chat says. And of course, the breaker, the host, has their mods in the chat that are, you know, helping sort of push everything. You know how it works. They're keyboard warriors, and people just get sucked into these traps. It's becoming an epidemic, which is again why we started Collectors MD. Okay, so I want to take a step back. There is something that I absolutely want to address. You have sort of been in the content world now for a long time, right? And
a little bit.
You've been doing YouTube, you've done the podcast circuits, you've done the panels, you've done it all. And so how do you think content specifically has shaped the way people collect? Has it helped? Has it hurt? Is it a little bit of both? Because I think, and the reason why I wanted to ask you this is because the shoe tubers, if you will, they were influencing and dictating the market and the narrative for the longest time. I mean, people like KITH, Omar, and Cousteau, and Foamer, and Bullet RC. I mean, these are like people that I used to watch all the time, 10 plus years ago, and they've either phased out or they're still just, humming along doing the same thing. But again, like a lot of them, for better or for worse, like have dictated the sneaker community because these young, impressionable individuals look up to them in a lot of ways as like role models, as idols, and they listen to whatever they tell them, right?
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Foamer Simpson. I mean, the only voice that I ever really listened to.
I used to love Foamer.
Yeah, he still does podcasts.
Yeah, I just saw Young Buckets do a little short the other day on walking around New York City for like 4 days straight in the military Blue Force.
Yep. So like he's still doing content, but in retrospect to what we're talking about, right? I remember watching Foamer and being like, love his content, love what he does. Some of the other people that you mentioned, like I never saw myself mirrored through their style. So like what they wore and how they spoke and what they were chasing and how they were chasing it didn't really land well with me personally. Like just KITH, Omar, and the joking, and like he didn't really have style, so I didn't really like what he did. I was like, I can't do that. I'm not wearing that, and I don't know if you know what you're talking about. So I'm good. Foamer was the only one that I really enjoyed to watch, but like you're seeing a transition. Like Foamer was 12 years ago. Look at like AD Sneaks is a perfect example of like new content. He's a photographer.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, he's a photographer and a teacher, but he gets a lot of product from brands because he shoots extremely well, and the content he does is extremely well shot. And I think that is a perfect example of like how things have transitioned from like a younger crowd to that crowd to this crowd. And he's not young. I'm not saying he's young by any means, but the way that content is fed to people is super fast.
Right.
And I don't love the disassociation of people into like this video format where there's no words, there's no like talking. It just like flashes of footwear in this cinematic way that makes you feel like, oh, it's going to be dope, but there's no functionality. There's no education about the product. There's no education about the storyline. It's just product shot well, given to you.
You know why they do that, right?
Oh, because fast-paced content is king right now, and people don't have long attention spans. I get it. Doesn't mean you can't.
They're feeding into the algorithm.
Yes,
they're doing whatever is going to drive as much traffic, clicks, likes, views, etc. As they can, because at the end of the day, those things, traffic, scale, size, reach, that's what drives revenue, right? There's advertising opportunities, and so
I think we're seeing that that's not necessarily true as of late. I think that we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years a very big shift in how content between retailers and brands like Nike and Saucony and Adidas actually try and communicate with people who are purchasing. I'm seeing way more people, like I said, with a store who want that connection over that fast pace. Like, there's too many shoes. There's too many items. It's too much to digest and not enough money to digest it all. So you need to find a new way to address these people. Okay, what were you saying?
Yeah. No, you're good, man. I was in advertising and marketing for 12, 13 years before I launched Collectors MD. So I know the ins and outs, the nuances of what marketers and advertisers are looking for. And what you just brought up is so spot on, because there's something called banner blindness, where a consumer understands or knows or recognizes, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, where an ad is going to appear, whether it be a pre-roll ad, a mid-roll ad, while watching YouTube, or a banner at the top of, a billboard banner at the top of their website, their favorite website that they consume content, or a targeted ad on social media. All these things are becoming sort of stale. And so people know where the ad's going to be. And so they just sort of scroll past it or ignore it, or have those blockers on where they don't even really see it. And so what brands and advertisers are trying to do now is get creative, get strategic around how they reach the consumer. And a lot of what they're doing is creating organic content with an influencer or creator, where the content will actually be all about that product by, let's say, Nike or Adidas. I actually saw an excellent example of that the other day. It was a Theragun commercial where they partnered with I think it was NBC and Jimmy Fallon. They brought on Josh Allen, quarterback for the Bills, who, by the way, lost to my Miami Dolphins today, 30-13, which is crazy. But anyway,
it's even crazier. But go ahead.
Yeah. I see you're wearing the Jets hat. We could get into that shortly, but what was I saying? So yeah, this Theragun commercial was fantastic, because the entire video was all about the Theragun and like why you should purchase it. But they created this like 30-minute video where these two like marketing gurus, or these like directors, battled one another, and they used Josh Allen's likeness, or like they used him in their commercial to create like a 30-second spot for Theragun that spoke to why their target demo should purchase the item. And so I ended up watching the whole thing, and Jimmy Fallon was in there. He was pretty funny, and Josh Allen, he's charming, likable guy. They had like a cute golden retriever. I mean, the whole thing was great, but again, it was just a long form ad. And that,
Did you buy
again,
Theragun?
No, but we're talking about it now. And so
exactly. It makes you want to. It's something that makes you actually rethink. And the fact that you're able to recall the entire promo for it because of how it addressed you specifically, or how you felt about it, is more important than 30 seconds of just Theragun and picture and it's over for that. It's over.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. And I do want to bring up one more point on the advertising subject. Another reason why these creators are making videos without any words, or like they're not speaking, and it's just like, a panorama of like, their outfit or their sneakers they're wearing, is because if there is no language, it can reach a wider audience of people who don't speak English. And so it's just more ubiquitous globally, and the ad reaches more individuals because it's universally like understandable, right? And that is something I actually saw in a Mr. Beast video. He said his best performing video or TikTok ever was one where he didn't say a single word, and there were no words on the screen. It was like a video of him running down a street with money strapped to him, and every 5 seconds the amount of money that was strapped to him would like increase. So it's like he's running with $500, now he's running with 5,000, now he's running with 50,000, and it would just go on. And it was like this 30-second video, and it got a bajillion views. And he said the reason why it did so well is because there were no words, there was no spoken language, and anybody in any country across the entire world could watch it and understand the message in the video. So I found that interesting, and you brought that up, so I'd be remiss not to touch on it. But we are getting off track, and that is my fault. I want to keep this on.
good at it too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this has been an amazing conversation, and we're unpacking a lot of really great things that I think will really resonate with our audience. So yeah, man. So content, again, that can be a lifeline or a trigger, regardless of what vertical we're talking about: cards, sneakers, watches, etc. That's part of why we created Collectors MD, to be a voice in the mix, just reminding people all they need to do is just pause, give themselves the opportunity to think, make a mindful decision, check in with yourself before you just make an impulsive purchase on a 10-second sudden death auction on whatnot, right? When you look at all of these verticals together, again, the sneakers, the cards, the streetwear, collectibles, whatever kind of collectible or material item that people purchase, do you think they're heading toward a crash, an evolution, or something in between?
I always think crash is like the trajectory of whatever's happening. I've been saying crash since like 2018 on footwear. After like the rise in 2016, I think a crash is inevitable, and we're already seeing it right now, especially with like Nike. If you're familiar with how they're producing retros and how footwear's coming out, like they're pulling back numbers across the board because the market's crashing. All this resale can only sustain itself for so long because there's the idea of having money to spend is over. Like that's out.
Yeah.
So the choices are few and far between, and I just think it's inevitable that like this market has to tumble before it can rise again.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that if there isn't, especially within the sports card space, if there isn't some sort of reform, whether it be regulation, set guardrails by a governing body or by the manufacturers and platforms themselves, and a shift in focus from just the dollar signs to the needs and ultimately safety of the end consumer, then we are absolutely headed for a crash. So in a lot of ways, like, we want Collectors MD to serve as sort of a conscience of the hobby, and like force people to take a step back and reevaluate everything that's going on, so that we could be more mindful about the direction, the sustainability, the equity of the hobby.
So I think I might have been a little short in my answer. Also, is that like it's already crashing is what I
Yeah,
should say.
yeah,
In regards, and because of that crash, it's almost like a natural reset where the number of items produced will automatically drop. The amount of people selling will automatically drop off. The amount of people interacting and the way that they interact will automatically begin to dissipate. And all of these resale platforms will have to position themselves in a way towards the thing that is still working. So it'll transition
right.
from the card space, from the footwear space. Like I'm seeing it already. Even Nike's transition to putting more effort into sneakers app and showing locations that are authentic sellers of their product because people want to go to those locations. You might not be paying attention to it, but like it's already happening in a way that brings people back to this place where they want a physical interaction to reestablish that original feeling, like nostalgia brought for Jordan, that'll have to
Right.
happen with anything that people collect, like cards. So I
Yeah.
was a little short in my answer, but like
No,
crash
it's
is
perfect.
inevitable. But I also think the rebuild will be much better as far
Yeah.
as card shows, as far as sneaker shows, as far as even sneaker stores and the way that people activate as a whole. Like that will come back.
Really well said. And it's the perfect segue for our final segment, which
I'm here to help.
is what's that?
I said I'm here to help.
You're here to help. You're giving me all the perfect setups. You're just throwing me alley oops left and right. So the next and last segment is the future of collecting, reclaiming culture and purpose. So let's talk about where we want this to go. Let's unpack that a little bit more. So if you could fast forward, let's call it 5 or 10 years, and design a healthier version of collecting culture, what would it look like?
A healthier form is, like you said, a little bit more involvement from the brands. They kind of do it now with who gets what pairs. I think they have to refocus where those pairs are going. Same thing with cards. They have to reassess like who has accounts, who has access, and like how they're dispersing said items that they are purchasing. whether, you know, they tag items and they can see where they're getting pushed to, but also like organically putting some of those dollars they're making now back into those mom and pop stores that created the original collectors. Something like sneaker stores do, where they activate when they drop packs. Now, obviously, like that's a little different because it's a little bit faster paced, but like we can find moments that make sense for neighborhoods that partner with these bigger brands
Right.
like Tops or Fanatics, I should say, for your space, right? For the
Right.
card space, that makes more sense to have more access and visibility from brand to front door to the consumer, which is,
Right.
I think, the most important part of rebuilding a healthy relationship with your consumer. Same thing with
Right.
footwear.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like a handful of the boutiques, especially in New York. Well, Concepts is based in Boston, but they also have a location in New York. KITH, I mean, KITH's mantra, I don't know if they still use this, but the mantra was just us. So like the whole idea was like rewarding or giving back to the OG community, the people
Mm-hmm.
that were with Ronnie, at the original location from the very beginning. And by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but I lived I lived in Soho for about 2 years from
Around the corner.
2013 to 2014. Yeah, right around the corner from KITH. And I didn't even know what KITH or Ronnie or who Ronnie Feig was until I moved there. And my roommate and I, we would go grab breakfast or coffee or whatever, and we'd always see the line out the door and be like, what the heck kind of store is this? So we went to go check it out one day, and I don't know who I spoke with. Maybe it was what was his name?
Lucas or
Lucas.
Jamie.
It was Lucas. Yeah. I actually built a great relationship with Lucas. He took care of me a number of times, but he explained to me like the whole, idea, the concept of everything that they were doing, and with the collabs and the sort of off the beaten path brands like Asics and Saucony and Puma. I mean, Ronnie has collaborated with everyone now. I mean, I don't want to call him a sellout, but like when you're collaborating with
Oh,
Elmo,
easy.
yeah, we're collaborating with Elmo and like Star Wars. Like, all right, like how many things?
It's inevitable. It's
Yeah,
inevitable.
but what I was getting at is I feel like a lot of these shops like were headed in that direction, where they were trying to create activations around releases, experiences, right? Like Concepts did it really well with their storytelling. Like
Mm-hmm.
Dion Point is he still their designer, like their main designer that's doing all the collabs?
Yeah, he did. Well, creative director.
Creative director.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Annie just stepped down, so I'm not sure.
they did a killer job for the longest time, or at least like when I was super involved, and I always really appreciated that. But then it just got to a point where everything that was coming out from KITH and Concepts and Extra Butter was another one that did a really good job with it, with their like Saucony collabs and such. Um, but anyway, yeah, like when something gets hyped and everybody wants a piece of the pie, it just becomes virtually impossible for the average collector, the consumer who actually just wants the shoes, to be able to access. And so, yeah, to your point, I think 5 to 10 years from now, I mean, it's a long time, but like there are a lot of things
That happens
that,
sooner than that.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, again, like this is a lot of what we're trying to build with Collectors MD, which is a space where collectors can still love what they love, but with more clarity, more boundaries, and more honesty. Even again, outside of cards, we're seeing sneakerheads and comic book collectors and toy collectors, even all saying the same thing, right? I still love this, but I don't love what it's doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what would you say to someone who's listening to this, who loves sneakers or cards or streetwear, or whatever, floats their boat, but feels like they're sort of teetering that line between passion and compulsion?
Well, I think the important thing is always trying to remember like what it is that you love about that thing, right?
Mhm.
And put on your blinders for a little while. Like block out all of that wherever you're consuming your information. Like if it's from a fast-paced site, like you're into heavy resell, or I turned off StockX. I'm not on Go. Like I can open it up and take a look if I need to because it's a sneaker store, but like I'm not on there like I used to be, checking to see if shoes that I wanted drop prices. Like put the blinders on, really shut that stuff down. And I mean, as much as I hate to do it, I go on Hypebeast a little bit more. I go on High Body a little bit more, and I try to read more articles about like what footwear's coming out, why it's coming out, who's dropping the shoe, and like kind of disassociate from the faster pace feel of what it is. And unless it really like hits you in the feels where you're like, oh wow, that's amazing, or I really do think that I want to put my time and effort into that, pick one thing. Pick that
Yeah.
one thing that you see once every 3 months, once every 2 months. If you're doing it twice a week, try to do it once a week. If you're doing it twice a month, try to do it once a month. Just cut all that in half and really digest the thing that you find the most drawn to.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done.
Yeah.
But if you practice
Yeah.
patience, self-discipline, and follow the three things that we always talk about at Collectors MD, which is what you see right on the screen: support, accountability, change. But in addition to that, there's awareness, there's intention. Those things will help you stay on that straight and narrow. I know it's again easier said than done, but awareness allows you to see patterns. Accountability is just all about being honest with yourself and other people that you care about, people you trust, people you love. Intention is about making decisions that line up with your said values, not just your impulses. So you've been in the game for a long time now, and how has your sort of why changed from when you first started collecting to now?
I hate to say this, but I don't think my why's changed very much. It's my how, right? Like
Okay,
how I
interesting.
view that thing has changed. Like I said, you look behind me, there's nothing DS on that wall. Nothing really changes that much. It's really all about like, do I want to wear it? I want to wear it. I should wear it. And if it has value that like flips, I probably don't pay as much attention to it. Because one, I don't want to think about if I wear it, what it does to the value. And I know what that does to my mind. So I don't even want to buy something that has a possible intrinsic value down the road. And that could
Right.
be an awake Air Jordan 5 or whatever have you. I try to stay away from all of that stuff because it's a slippery slope.
Right. For those of our listeners who don't know what DS means, DS stands for dead stock, which basically means brand new and unworn shoes or clothes that come from their like original box or original packaging.
Guys hit me with acronyms the entire afternoon over here.
Right, right. Yeah, so what Mikey is basically implying is that none of the shoes behind him are DS, which means that he wears them, right? We always say, like, if you're gonna buy a pair of sneakers, wear them. And that's something that I did not do for, basically the entire time I was deep, deep, deep in sneaker culture, sneaker collecting. And I mean, to some extent I guess I regret it, but I was also able to make some much needed money back when I decided to downsize my collection from 500 plus pairs to 20, 30 pairs that I have now. But by the way, like, while I'm on the topic, we're talking about pack or storing properly and making sure that your items are kept in like the right environment or like at the right temperature so that they don't sort of deteriorate or get ruined over time. That was something I didn't do a good job of. I put everything in drop front containers from the Container Store, and they were like right next to a window in my bedroom when I lived in Hoboken with roommates. And then like eventually it got to a point where I had to like start stacking them in the living room behind like our TV. I mean, it got out of control. But there was like a lot of moisture, and I don't know if like the temperature was off or like the lighting from the window, but like a lot of the shoes ended up like yellowing. Like I remember my white cement fours, like which I never wore, and these were from like, when did they come out? 2015, 2016? Or
One of the releases, yes.
yeah, one of those were one of the releases. I remember taking them out to look at them once. I was like, these look completely yellowed. The irony is that like through a lot of these trends, yellowing became popular thanks to like Off-White and Virgil. And I was like, they actually look kind of cool, but like one shoe was like significantly more yellow than the other. And so I had a hard time like moving
the one
those.
that faced the window.
Yeah, probably. But another thing I noticed is like anytime I would look at the bottom of a DS pair of sneakers, they always had like black scuff marks from like the container. And I think that was just like the moisture buildup or like the dust. And it was just such a pain in the ass when I tried to like move them in volume through StockX, because what I did was I would literally take them from the drop room containers. And by the way, I'd lace them up nicely so I could photograph them for my Instagram, then throw them right back in the drop room container. So when I went to sell them all, I had to like relace them, factory lace them. I had to clean them all because even though they were brand new, a lot of them had like, you know, dust on them or whatever. And then I had to like match them with their boxes, which were in my storage unit. I had to hire my movers who moved me from Hoboken to Jersey City to come bring their trucks so I could take them to the StockX location in New York City to drop off like hundreds of pairs. It got to a point where when they were authenticating them, a handful of them, again, they were like flagging them for having that yellowing or like the dust or whatever. And they ended up returning like 40 pairs to me. And it was a nightmare. And I had to like get on the phone with their customer service and speak to a supervisor. And eventually they ended up taking them back. But it was like, it's just so subjective when it comes to authenticating. You saw, I recently sold my Union ones, and I posted this in our group chat. They failed authentication. Like I bought them directly from Union, and they failed authentication because StockX, you know, subjectively said that they weren't authentic. And I think the reason why they didn't pass is because I had relaced them with the yellow laces. And I had gotten to a point where when I was selling in high volume, I just stopped relacing them if I had like lace swapped or like whatever. And I would just send them to StockX, and they would usually just take them. But I think somebody saw them and they looked different from like, you know, whatever picture reference they were using, which most Jordan 1s come unlaced, and they just ended up sending them back to me. I don't know what they're not authenticating anymore. But
they were never authenticating is the problem. So like they obviously don't know what's real and what's fake. So realistically, anything that's offset from a box is what's going to throw them off. And if that's what threw them off, then
I don't know what it was, but
don't get me started. I don't want to get started.
I ended up reaching out to them, sending them the receipt, like letting them know that they were 100% real. Like I've sold hundreds of pairs through StockX, mostly with no issues, and they ended up taking them back, and they gave me credit. They gave me like credit on the app, but it was a whole ordeal. And it's just again, like this just speaks to the fact that if you're not in it for the right reasons, and at the end of the day you're just going to end up flipping everything you own, you're just creating more work for yourself. It becomes a hassle. It becomes a burden, and that's really what it was for me. Every time I moved from apartment to apartment, I'd have to go and purchase like 40-50 Lowe's boxes, extra large Lowe's boxes, so that I could, you know, be able to move them. It would take me days to pack and then unpack. It was a nightmare, man.
I used a box truck when I moved into this house. I also
is that a company?
No,
or like an actual box truck?
I ordered a U-Haul myself. I boxed the entire U-Haul. I wasn't trusting anybody with my shoes. What are you insane?
Yeah, it just dawned on me. It would be probably a pretty good business venture, which would be like, you know, somebody who moves collections, especially things that are a little bit more difficult to maneuver, like 800 pairs of sneakers, right?
Yep.
So anyway, I just went off on a crazy tangent, but again, I'd be remiss not to touch on some of these things while we're on the topic. Before we get into our rapid fire round, and then we're going to close things out, I do want to just quickly ask you what you were going to say before about your Jets.
Oh, no, we were talking about hats, and I designed.
You're a Jets fan, right?
This is my Jets hat that I designed for the store. Yeah.
It's a dope hat. Not such a dope team, though.
You got what's your record right now?
Yeah, I mean the Dolphins stink, and I also went to Penn State, so really Penn State's my pride and joy, and we lost to Indiana on a heartbreaker yesterday after, you know, losing our star quarterback for the year and coach of 10, 11 years getting fired the day after. Anyway, that's besides the point. But yeah, like I feel like every team I root for the most part is just ends up breaking my heart. I'm a
Jets fan, dude. It doesn't get much worse than this.
Yeah. I mean, you guys traded away your best defensive players.
I mean, hopefully for a good cause, hopefully.
In an effort to, like, you know, have a losing season so that you could have a better pick. And then what do? They go and beat the Browns.
Yeah.
So
again,
anyway, I'm not going to get you started. But I had to bring it up. All right. So we're going to get into our rapid fire round. I am going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to hit me with your, you know, first thing that comes to mind. You ready?
Go.
All right. First sneaker you ever camped out for?
Spoke about it, salmon.
Most sentimental pair in your collection right now.
You know what? I was trying not to pay attention to these questions so I could be rapid about it. I would say my Casteliers, Diodora.
Diodora is a fantastic brand. Most of their shoes are made in Italy, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Diodora is awesome. One release you regret buying into the hype on?
Ooh, oh Jesus. Not really many on that one. Maybe KITH Adidas tribute to this is a bad one to say. Tribute to 9/11. Do you remember that Adidas that they did with the gold toe box? It was like his second Adidas he ever did. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm looking them up right now.
It was actually the night before Victor Cruz broke his knee. He was out there. We were camping. Him and Ronnie stopped by. Probably is the worst shoe. I was like, why am I out here for this? This is terrible.
Oh, the gold. Yeah, the gold caps. I had those. Wait, you're talking about the Never Forget collection? Like the
Yes.
Never Forget?
Yes.
Yeah, dude. I had those. If it makes you feel better, I hated those.
This is the worst shoe ever.
Yeah.
That was the worst.
Yeah. They creased so badly. That silhouette was just like.
Is it EQT?
It was no bueno. Yeah, EQT. I thought you were talking about the soccer collab.
I like the soccer one. I still wear the jumpsuit, as a matter of fact.
They took the silhouette of like a cleat and they put it on an Ultra Boost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they did the same thing with like that knit upper when like Fly Knit or Prime Knit was really popular. Those were beautiful.
Oh, wait, you know what? I have the black pair still.
Yeah. Yeah. They did some really great releases back in like 2014, 2015. Anyway, one underrated silhouette or brand you think most people should pay attention to?
Saucony. I think Saucony is probably the most underrated and like missed company out right now. I mean, there's some other like fun. What's Russell? Not Russell Westbrook. I have a pair of them. Oh my god. Kyrie's new company.
Anta?
Anta. I think Anta's doing some good work too.
Yeah.
It would be one of those two.
Real quick, these Sauconys from Extra Butter were one of the only, I think it was the only pair of Sauconys I ever camped out for. And I ended up missing on them because I guess I didn't get there early enough.
You were in the back of the line, sir.
I was in the back of the line, yeah. And I didn't know anyone. I didn't know a guy named Mikey Dabb, the Campout, to like hook me up. You skip
anyway.
Yeah, of course. But these were dope. I ended up getting them. They're paying resell. They're probably pretty accessible now. I mean, I don't know how many they came out with, but the materials on them were not good. I will say that. But I've had a handful of Sauconys that even like the GRs or like the inline models of the Shadow 6000, amazing quality shoes.
I'm talking about like the newer stuff, the Pro Grid 9, the Omni 9, like all that, dude, all that stuff is.
Oh, you're talking about like these type of runners.
Yeah.
These have become extremely, this style across Saucony, Asics, even Nike has a bunch of different silhouettes, very similar. What eras would you say that this style is from? Like the
90s,
early 2000s?
Yeah, late 90s. You want to go early 2000s, sure, but like late 90s is more motif on that. I love the way that shoe looks, and plus like we're going baggier again, thank God. So like it's a little bit more of a fuller shoe, and the price point's right. You're looking at 140, 160 at retail. Most places probably have these Star Cows on sale for probably 110, 120, and like it's a different shoe. Not everybody's wearing. You can differentiate yourself a little bit, and they're comfortable.
Sure. There is one brand I'm actually surprised you haven't brought up, and that you probably could guess. I'll let you guess real quick.
Asics.
Oh, we've talked about Asics. There's one brand we haven't talked about at all.
We did Adidas. Puma?
Nope. I'm shocked that you're not. Think about it. Think about KITH. Think about
New Balance.
Yes, New Balance.
Oh, man.
New Balance, made in the USA. In my personal opinion, made in the UK too. Doesn't get much better than the New Balance if you're talking about quality.
It does with price point, though.
They're very expensive.
I think that New Balance is still in their space of being like, we are who we are, and we charge what we charge for what we're creating. But like, there are plenty of newer silhouettes and styles that are equally as comfortable, that last longer, and I can wear and throw in the washing machine at half the price. So
Yeah.
like, and like they haven't really bridged that gap yet. You'll see the 2002 deconstructed is coming. Yeah, the 2002, right? They're doing the deconstructed pack again, extra butter.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
Yeah.
like, cool, love that. But if that price point doesn't change, sorry, not sorry.
Fair enough.
I did
Real
buy
quick,
loafers though. I bought their loafers.
I picked up the Joe Freshgood. What are these called? They're not the OG. Like these
The
go
pink
for
one,
like
the pink one you're talking
the
about.
pink ones. Yeah.
It's like an ode to something. I forgot what it's
Yeah.
called.
So basically, this was the original
Yeah.
that came out a couple years ago, and they go for like thousands. He
Yeah,
ended up coming out with like a part 2, which basically is supposed to look like an aged version of the original. And they released at retail for like, I don't know, 240, 250.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got them for under retail, and one of my favorite shoes I've ever purchased. I'm a sucker for the 992, and I just think the color blocking and the color palette he chose on these is amazing. So again, just a perfect example of a shoe that, you know, you could purchase at a fair price that not everybody else is buying, but you buy it because you like it, you know?
They dropped them in Chicago for some kind of sneaker convention. I forgot which convention it was. And it was so hard to obtain. The website was so terrible that I was like, I don't even care about this shoe. And I love that first one.
Yeah. Okay. Last question for the rapid fire round. What is the line you tell a young collector? Let's say like a young kid, 15, 16-year-old that is just getting started in collecting sneakers.
Well, if they tell me they're collecting shoes, I tell them don't collect. That's the first thing I tell them. Like, don't do it because you want to collect shoes. Do it because you like shoes, right? Do it because you want to wear them. You want to put things together. Don't do it because you want to put it on a shelf. That's all.
Well said. Mikey, this has been awesome, man. What I really appreciate about you and why I wanted you to come on to the Collectors Compass is that you stayed rooted in something deeper than just height, right? You've seen the culture change. You've never lost that sense of story, community, intention. And for everyone listening, if you care about sneaker culture, streetwear, just collecting in a way that actually feels like you, go follow Mikey. You can find him on social at TheCamp0ut. That's Campout with a 0 in the word
Ooh.
out. So that's THECAMP, the number 0 UT. And check out his site, camp-out.com. He puts out things like branded pieces, collabs, and you'll be able to stay up to date with everything he's got going on. Now he's got homework. No, but if you're hearing this and realizing that you're collecting, whether it's sneakers, cards, or anything else, it started to feel more like a compulsion than passion, I want you to know you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. At Collectors MD, we host free weekly peer support group meetings where we talk about compulsive collecting, overspending, gambling-like behaviors in the hobby, and how to build healthier habits together. We also share things like daily reflections, tools, and resources designed to help you collect with intention, not compulsion, across all verticals. You can find everything at collectorsmd.com and follow us on Instagram at collectorsmd for updates, stories, and new episodes of the Collectors Compass, Behind the Breaks, and Collectors MD features. Mikey, thank you again for being here, for your friendship over the years, and for reminding us that collecting doesn't have to be dictated by height. It can still be rooted in joy and authenticity. This is the Collectors Compass. I'm Alyx Efron, reminding you, whether it's sneakers, cards, or anything else, the goal isn't to collect more, it's to collect with more clarity. Take care of yourselves, and remember, collect with intention, not compulsion. We'll see you next time.